If I could only prescribe one exercise to reduce the risk of hamstring injuries, this would be right at the top of my list. The Nordic hamstring curl has been researched for years, yet most athletes either don't do it incorrectly, or simply give up because it's too hard. As a physiotherapist, I use this exercise regularly with athletes returning from hamstring injuries, ACL reconstruction, and anyone wanting to build stronger, more resilient hamstrings. So in this video, I'm going to explain why the Nordic hamstring curl is so effective, what the research actually says, and who should be doing it, and how you can start safely, even if you can't do a single rep today. Let's get into it. Why are hamstring injuries such a problem? Hamstring strains are one of the most common injuries in running and field sports. One of the biggest issues is that once you've had one hamstring strain, your risk of another injury increases significantly. Part of the reason is that many athletes regain their pain-free movement before they've actually regained the strength and capacity their hamstrings need for sprinting. When you're sprinting at top speed, your hamstrings have an incredibly demanding job. Just before your foot lands, they're working hard to slow your leg down while they're lengthening at the same time. That's called an eccentric contraction. If the hamstrings aren't strong enough to tolerate those forces, that's when injuries can occur. So if we want to build hamstrings that are more resilient, we need to train them to tolerate high eccentric loads. That's exactly where the Nordic hamstring curl comes in. Why is the Nordic hamstring curl so effective? The Nordic curl is one of the best exercises we have for developing eccentric hamstring strength. Instead of lifting yourself up, the goal is to control yourself as you slowly lower towards the floor. That long, controlled lowering phase places a huge stimulus on the hamstrings. Over time, this can increase eccentric strength and may also increase the length of the muscle fascicles, particularly in the biceps femoris, which is the hamstring muscle most commonly injured during sprinting. These adaptations are thought to be one of the reasons Nordic curls are associated with a lower risk of hamstring injury. So what does the research say? Research over the past 2 decades has consistently shown that teams implementing Nordic hamstring training experience fewer hamstring injuries than teams that don't. Now, this doesn't mean the Nordic curl is magic. It won't prevent every injury, and it certainly doesn't replace sprinting, strength training, or a well-designed rehabilitation program. But it's one of the strongest pieces of evidence we have for an individual exercise reducing hamstring injury risk. That's why you'll see versions of it used in many elite sporting environments around the world. The biggest mistakes I see. The first mistake is progressing too quickly. Most people can't perform a full Nordic curl on day one, and that's completely normal. The second mistake is trying to pull yourself back up using your hamstrings. Early on, the goal isn't to complete full repetitions. The goal is to control the lowering phase for as long as possible before catching yourself with your hands. The third mistake is not progressing the exercise. Once you become stronger, you'll eventually need to increase the challenge by slowing the lowering phase, increasing the volume, adding assistance, or progressing towards full repetitions. How do you start if you're a beginner? If you're new to Nordic curls, start with controlled eccentric repetitions. Lower yourself as slowly as you can. Catch yourself with your hands. Push yourself back to the starting position and repeat. If that's too difficult, you can use a resistance band for assistance or reduce the range of motion until you build enough strength. Remember, consistency is far more important than trying to force full repetitions too early. So how do you actually set them up? This is one of the biggest barriers. A lot of people know they should be doing Nordic curls, but they don't have someone available to hold their ankles. There are a few options. You can have a training partner hold your ankles. You can anchor your feet under a heavily loaded barbell. Some gyms have dedicated Nordic benches. And if you're training at home, another option is using an anchored strap under a closed door. That's why I designed the Nordstrap. I wanted a simple way for people to perform Nordic hamstring curls consistently without relying on someone else. Whether you use a partner, a rack, a Nordic bench, or a strap, it doesn't really matter. The important thing is that you find a setup that you'll actually use consistently. Who should be doing Nordic curls? These are a great option for field sport athletes, sprinters, footballers, rugby players, soccer players, and anyone who regularly performs high-speed running. They're also commonly used during rehabilitation after hamstring injuries and later stage ACL rehabilitation, where rebuilding hamstring strength is often a key goal. That doesn't mean everyone needs them though. If you're early after an injury, have significant pain, or you've been advised against high-load hamstring exercises, speak with your physiotherapist before adding them to your program. The Nordic hamstring curl isn't the only exercise you should do, but it's one of the most effective tools we have for building eccentric hamstring strength and improving resilience. If you've never tried them before, don't judge yourself by how many reps you can do. Most people struggle initially. Focus on slow, controlled progress and stay consistent. If you found this video helpful, I'd really appreciate if you hit the like button and subscribe for more evidence-based videos on injury prevention, rehabilitation and performance. And if you'd like to perform Nordic curls at home without needing a training partner, I'll leave a link to the Nordstrap in the description below.